nap or siesta. So very interesting. When we fall asleep, when we look at our core body temperature, our temperature rises, then around 10:30 at night, it reaches its peak and then it falls. When it falls, that's a signal to our brain to release melatonin, which is kind of that key that starts the engine for sleep. That fall goes down, down, down until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it rises up for about 20 minutes, and then it falls again, okay? That second fall is actually very consistent with a siesta. So siestas are actually a biologically driven phenomenon that occurs based on this core body temperature drop. I love siestas, okay? There's nothing wrong with the siesta. Your biology wants you to actually have one. The question becomes, how long? What we don't want is somebody sleeping from 1 until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Because then you'll never fall asleep at night. Napping is great, except for people with insomnia. If you have insomnia, the data is very consistent. The last time that you were asleep is directly correlated to how long it takes you to fall asleep. So if you have insomnia and the last time you were asleep was at 6 o'clock in the morning, then you will fall asleep, let's say, in an hour. If you took a nap and the last time you were asleep was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it could take you 3 hours to fall asleep. So napping is good for just about everybody except insomniacs. For them, I tell them no napping whatsoever. We want to increase that sleep drive and make them more tired, so when they do fall asleep at night, they have a greater chance of sleeping through the night. But I'm a big fan of naps. Sleeping after meals. So some people find that depending upon what the meal is, they get extremely tired right after that meal. Usually if the meal is more carbohydrates, that's usually what's going on. So there's a lot of data to show that carbohydrates actually make us feel more tired. Whereas protein and less complex carbohydrates, like more what you find in vegetables, won't make you as sleepy. So look at the content of the meal, and oftentimes that can tell you quite a bit. Was somebody over here who had a question?
Question, yeah. Just want to find out, because I sleep with the table light on. Is it okay practice? Yeah.
To do what?
She sleeps with the light on.
She leaves the light on. Is that okay? So this is it's an interesting question. So light has a direct effect on our melatonin production. So when light hits our eye, it turns off the melatonin faucet in our brain. But I have lots of patients who will sleep with the light on. If you don't wake up and you sleep well, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But if you told me, hey Michael, I'm not sleeping so well all the time, and by the way, I do sleep with the light on, then I would say, well, let's get you a night light, right? A small light, and let's see if you sleep any better that way, because a lot of times you would. Okay? It's fine, don't worry about it. If you can sleep with the light on, you're doing just fine. The sleep doctor gives you permission. How about that? Say again, a night mask, like eye shades? So eye shades are great. I recommend them for people all the time, especially when you're sleeping in a foreign environment, someplace that you're not used to sleeping. It can actually be very helpful. Yes, sir.
Hi, I read that you are expert in some sleep medicine.
Yes.
So is there any updates on what kind of sleep medicine is healthy for us to try out to improve sleep?
Sure. So right now, when you look at the medicine, you're talking about pharmaceutical medicine, right? So like pills, right? So when you look at pharmaceuticals right now, almost all the pharmaceuticals are created as a reaction to insomnia, right? So people who can't sleep, can't fall asleep, or can't stay asleep, they take a pill. We really don't have any medications that improve the quality of the sleep. Here's what I can tell you from the data so far. When you look at somebody's sleep that's induced by a pharmaceutical, or you look at natural sleep, they're very different, right? Nothing is ever going to beat natural sleep, or at least nobody has come across a medication so far to do that. There are 2 medications out there that have show some modest improvement in physically restorative sleep. One is called gabapentin or Neurontin. It actually seems to improve a little bit stage 3-4 sleep, and then there's a benzodiazepine that nobody uses anymore that does that as well. But they are starting to work on new medications that could increase REM sleep or increase deep sleep selectively. My biggest concern is I don't know what it's going to do. Like sometimes Mother Nature has got these things working in a particular way where maybe it's not such a great idea to improve people's REM sleep or improve people's deep sleep. But I guess time will tell more about what we learn. But generally speaking, I think from a scientific perspective, we are starting to see more people actually personalize sleep medications. So as an example, when you look at insomnia, not all insomnia is created equal. There's I can't fall asleep, there's I can't stay asleep, there's I wake up too early, there's insomnia associated with pain, insomnia associated with menopause, insomnia associated with anxiety. I would hope that in the future, we start to see medications that could address all the different types of insomnia, as opposed to one medication that's supposed to do everything, because one medication is never going to do everything. Other questions? Yeah?
For those who exercise regularly, like marathon runners or triathletes, and that,
Yes.
what advice do you have for like this group of people regarding sleep?
Absolutely. So when we look at these ultra athletes, right? So marathoners, triathletes, ultra marathoners, one of the things that we have to be careful of is overtraining. So the very first signs of overtraining is sleep disruption in some of my athletes. So if I've got people who are running 40, 50, 100 miles for a race, which believe it or not, there are these people that do that, when they train too much, that can actually cause insomnia. But aside from overtraining, one of the things we know is that athletes need sleep. As a matter of fact, Princess and I went yesterday to the Singapore Sports Institute, where we met with their entire sports psychology department and their sports physiology department, who will work with all of the athletes that represent the country in the Asia Games, in the Olympics, things like that. And all of them were interested in learning more about sleep, because sleep has really kind of become an athlete's new secret weapon, if you will. You know, performance-enhancing drugs have all been banned and outlawed, so now athletes are trying to figure out what is the best thing that I can do for my body that can be helpful, and sleep turns out to be a big one. But we think about sleep with athletes as recovery, right? So we're talking about both physical recovery, mental recovery. So when you look at sleep from an athlete's perspective, it's very, very important to make sure that they get enough. And in many cases, athletes need more sleep rather than less sleep. Sleep extension has actually been shown to improve performance in multiple different sports, everything from basketball to swimming to distance running. Extending the amount of sleep, in that case, an athlete might sleep 9, even 10 hours, can actually be very helpful because of that physical issue of their body needing more time to heal.
For those who have like full-time job and like family, and it's quite hard to get 9-10 hours
Yes.
of sleep though. So what do you advise?
Sure. So when we talk about real performance athletes who also have a day job, right, and a family and things like that, then the consistency of their sleep turns out to be incredibly important. So going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, that is going to be very important, because the more consistent you are with your circadian rhythm and you're going to bed and waking up, the more your brain knows exactly what to do at that time and can get you into the deeper sleep faster. Believe it or not, I only sleep roughly 6.5 hours a night because I go to bed at midnight every night and I wake up at 6:30 every morning. And my brain knows exactly what to do, and that way I don't need as much sleep because it's not trying to figure it out. So in instances where you can't get more sleep, consistent sleep turns out to be very, very important. Also, napping for my athletes can be good as well. I have some athletes who will nap just before an event, or if they didn't get great night's sleep the night before, napping then as well can be very helpful to, again, lower that level of anxiety, as well as help them heal from any minor injuries or things like that might be going on. Good question.
Is there an easy way to measure how good a sleep is, like using a maybe oximeter to monitor like maybe 95% of oxygen level? Is there a good indication that that's a good night's sleep if you have consistently 95%, or it's not necessarily the case?
So it depends upon what you're looking at in terms of how you measure good sleep, right? So when we measure things like oximetry, what we're looking for is something called sleep apnea. Okay, and so sleep apnea is where you stop breathing in your sleep. It's very dangerous, very bad. So sometimes your doctor will put a little probe on your finger and have you go to sleep with it on and measure your oxygen all night long. That's fine. That'll let you know if you have sleep apnea, but that really doesn't tell you much more than that. There are a lot of sleep trackers now on the market, like wrist-worn trackers or bedside trackers. I like a lot of them. The problem is they're not very accurate. And so you kind of get what you pay for. So if you pay $1 for an app on your phone, it's probably not going to give you as much information as a full sleep tracker that might cost you $15, $20, or even $30 in the store. So I recommend usually that people look at the company that created the tracker, what kind of history do they have in sleep, what kind of information it has, and quite honestly, the price tag. If it's less than $10, it's probably not going to be very accurate. Other folks? Yes?
Regarding the sleep princess bed, may I know what magic have you done to the sleep bed to enhance sleep on board?
Yep. So it was very interesting. One of the things that we realized is that our community of cruisers can have different tastes in terms of firmness of the bed.